Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Hussein Kadhim. Today, I will talk with you about how to get your article published in high impact factor, starting from the title to the references, and I will give a brief about submission format at the end of my presentation, starting from registering in the journal, selecting the journal, then registering in the journal, and then go through the steps until you get your article submitted and revised and published. Now, first of all, our discussion in this presentation will be through a few points. These points are why we need to publish our articles. Sorry, what is the impact factor? Because I want to give you a brief about the quality of journal and how you should select the right journal for your published article. What is the journal indexing? Because this is related to the quality of the journal you will select. What is the journal impact factor quartile? And because some requirements by university is to publish in quadrant 1, 2, and so on. So you need to know this information. Question to know before you write your article. You need to answer them, and you go ahead and writing your article. You select the type of your article, as I will explain. The general structure of a full article. These are guidelines for the researcher to how they write their paper, their articles. Tenses in journal, and this is also useful for thesis. If you write thesis, MSc or BSc, PhD thesis, then you can use these information, even BSc. The steps of publishing in high-ranked journals. This is what I said at the end. I will show you how you submit your article until you get published, and acknowledgement. Now, first of all, let's ask this question: why we need to publish our results, our information we got through either experimental work, simulation, whatever the study we are doing. Now, you have results. If the results coming from your experiment or your study is original and you have a contribution, then go ahead. So results or methods, if it's new. Review. Sometimes you revise published work in literature, and then you try to analyze the published work and come up looking inside and come up with a perspective. So this is called review paper, and you can publish it. Manuscript, when you make advancement or improvement, okay, for in scientific field, in any topic, but you make some improvement, okay. Sometimes it is case study, you apply it in specific, let me say, location for situation for reasons. Also, you can publish it. What not to publish is no scientific interest. If it report, I mean, example, and it's out of date work or duplication or incorrect or unacceptable conclusions. Okay, so you need to think twice before you publishing your results, if it is useful for the scientific community or not. Now let's come to the impact factor. As I mentioned, before we publish the paper, after we complete the paper, we need to look for right journal. Yeah, I know that many researchers they use today some website like finding journal in any publisher, in Elsevier, Springer, Wiley, or whatever the publisher, and try to put the information there, and the website will help to find the right journal. But it's important for the researchers to know information about general information about the journals and their quality. And let me start with impact factor. Impact factor is very simple. It's a criteria used to judge the quality of the journal, and is defined as the average annual number of citation per article published. It mean I will give example here so you can understand it. Now let's say A is the number of time article published in 2006 and 7 were cited in 2008. It means I want to calculate the impact factor in 2008. So I look 2 years back, 2006 and 7, and I see number of citations for the articles published, okay, there. Then B is the number of citable items, I mean the papers cited. Okay, let's say in 2006, 150 papers have been cited, and in 2007 had another 150. So when I come to divide A over B to find the impact factor, I would say there is 600 citation in 2008, okay, divided by number of articles already cited in the last 2 years in 2006 and 2007. It will be 600 over 300, it will be 2. So 2 is the impact factor. As much as the impact factor increase, it means this journal is more, have good reputation, quality is good. This is all, let me say, bar chart, but I would like to highlight here the subject area influence on the impact factor. I mean, as much as the scientists, the scientific community interested in a field or category, okay, you find that there is a high impact factor for this category. As example, this is in 1998, you see that the highest impact factor was in fundamental life science. I mean, papers or articles published in this field expected to be published in journal with highest impact factor. Neuroscience, clinical medicine, these are, we go down, okay? So you see, as example, computer science and mathematics. Computer science today, the impact factor increase because it's changed. Now it's not 1998, now 2020, 2021. So things changed. So impact factor related to the interest of in this category or that category by scientists, researchers, professors, universities. Now let's go for journal index. As I mentioned, we need to look to the quality of the journal before we publish our article. So indexing give impression about the quality of the journal. Okay, higher scientific quality it means. And mainly people are depending on Scopus data, which is Elsevier, initiated in 2004 or launched in 2004. Okay, it's the database for abstract and citation. And many now universities, many research centers, many, let me say, ministries depend on Scopus to specify the quality of journals, and even the researchers, they look to their H-index in Scopus as example. It is better, one of the best, I mean, let me say, databases, okay, for indexing. Also, there is Web of Science or Thomson Reuters in the past, today it's Clarivate. I mean, there are some databases, okay? People use them to judge that this is good quality, high quality journal or not. Journal impact factor quartile. Now, you here, let's assume that the good reputation journals is 100 in a field. Let's take as example energy field. Okay, the field of energy. We have 100 journals. All these journals, the 100 journals, represent the high impact factor journals. Now, the highest 25 journals represent in this 100 represent Q1 in quadrant 1, which is the best. In quadrant 2, the next 25. In quadrant 3, the next 25. In quadrant 4, the next 25, and so on. You see here? So you see quadrant 1 Q1 is Z between 0 to 0.25, and quadrant 2 between 2.25 to 0.5 into 50%. And you may say, oh, what is Z? Z is percentage rank, which represents X over Y, where X is the journal rank in category according to the matrice, and Y number of journal within the category. At the end, as example, as I mentioned, let's assume we have 100 and the sequence or this journal is sequence is 15. So 15, it means it is quadrant 1. Why? Because 15 over 100, it is lower than 0.25. So it is in this rank. And this is also give you a clear idea about journal impact factor. You see as example here, rank cited journal data. Here you can see this category, chemistry, and this category, energy. You see in chemistry, okay, this in 2014, 13, 20, 12, for a specific journal, let me say. You see it tell you quadrant 1. Quadrant 1 because the number of this journal is 9 out of 72. When we divide it, we got it between 0 to 0.25. Well, here's example, 24 out of 89. When we divide it, it is between 0.25 into 0.5. So it's a quadrant 2, and so on. By the way, scientific journal ranking, you find their website there. It's give you directly, you see here the quadrant. It did the calculation and give you directly, it's Q1, Q2, Q3, 4. It's give you directly, and also it give you the information they depend on it. As example, here these are the journals, as you can see here, and these are the matrices used in defining the quality of the journal. But this is the country. But here you can see you can see directly it gave you the quadrant. Now, before we write our article, we need to answer questions. Okay, few questions. If we answer them and we come up with yes, then we need to go to prepare the paper. If it is not, then something wrong. We cannot go for. It's not, we are not ready yet. Now, this question, you have to ask yourself about these questions before you write your paper. Is it new and interesting? Is it current hot topics? I mean, people still interested in this topic? Have you provided solution to some difficult problems? Are you ready to publish at this point? Or, I mean, you don't have enough information, still part of the experimental work is not finished. You don't have time to write the paper, and so you need to answer this question. If you answer them yes, then go ahead and prepare your manuscript or your paper. Now, you may say, what type of paper I write? Because we have different type of papers. Is it full article? Okay, full article, it's original article. Okay, or original paper, they call it sometime. Okay, complete paper, it's complete story, put in one file. Or is it letter, or they call it rapid communication, short communication, brief, not in brief. I mean, it's at the end something short and quick to be published, easy. And why researchers went to this direction? Because they discover, as example, new original advance in the field, and they need fast to publish it. So they write it in a short, I mean, let me say communication or letters. Review papers is interesting and important for a scientific community because it's, let me say, give perspective in a specific field or a topic. I mean, many researchers publish, as example, in a field, as example, in solar energy. What we do, we try to summarize their work, discreticism for their work, analyze their work, but with this analysis, we need to come up with conclusions which open new doors, highlight important achievements, highlight shortages and misinformation. This is useful for the researcher to go ahead in finding answer for these, let me say, topics or information. Self-evaluate your work. By the way, I advise these 2 points. Advise self-evaluate your work. Is it sufficient for a full article? You ask yourself before you write the paper, and or even if you write the paper, ask yourself, is it sufficient? Do you think this will add something to the science? People, if it is submitted to a journal, do you think it will pass the editor? You need to ask this question. Also, you can ask for advice from your colleagues, your supervisor, professors you are working with. This will help because they may see something you don't see. Yeah, this is the beauty of research, which is collaboration. What makes a good manuscript? Okay, good manuscript should contains a clear, useful, exciting scientific message. I mean, when you read it, you feel it's a story, full story from A to Z. Okay, nothing missed, and it's coming in sequence. There is no jumps, there is no gaps. Follows in a logical manner that the reader can follow. I mean, if the reader come and read the results, and after he finished the results, he found the experimental setup. How it come? He need to know the experimental setup, the methodology, then go for the results. Is formatted to be best showcase the material. I mean, it's not enough to write the paper. My advice always is for my students, researchers working with me, is please revise, spend time to revise your paper. Leave it few days or week, and then back to read it again and do some corrections, some improvement. Try to feel it, to feel if it is good story or not. Is written in a style that transmitted the message clearly, or people when they read it from the beginning they feel boring and they lose their way, what is needed from in this paper, what they did in this paper. Now for structure, paper structure, here I try to show let me say a general structure for any paper. It contains title, and title is precise and very specific. I will talk about it later. You may put the title at the end when you finish the paper. Authors, names and information, affiliation, blah blah blah. Abstract. I will give a brief about each one of them. Keywords, the keys where people are gonna search for your work. Main text, I call it IMRAD. IMRAD, it means I for introduction, M for methods, R for results, and discussion. So this is the sequence, okay? And acknowledgement, references, supplementary material, as example, appendices, if you want a nomenclature, add at the end, okay? I will brief each one of them in my discussion here. First of all, the title. Make it attractive, because this is the first thing to be read by the editor, okay? Title tell all, and my advice, when you write the title, you write it at the end, okay? You can propose something at the beginning, but you write it at the end, and you write more than title, and then think about them and select. Why at the end? Because at the end you have a clear idea about the paper, what it contains, okay? So when you come to write it, you know what to write. What are the words you use, okay? Write backwards, okay? And some researchers, as example, they start directly from title, then abstract, then introduction, literature, and they go for, no, my advice is to write backward. First of all, prepare your figures and tables. You work, as example, in doing experiment in lab, okay? You get results, okay? Records, and then do the figures, the tables, you find them sufficient to write paper, or go ahead, write the method, the results, the discussion, then you write the conclusion, and then you go for introduction, and at the end, abstract and title. So write backward. Now let's come to the abstract. What is abstract about? First of all, abstract should stand alone. It should not refer to something. You should not cite references here. You give like brief about the story, about the paper. It's like advertisement, okay? You highlight the key finding, and you show the prospective reader, to the reader, okay? Avoid, using jargon or uncommon abbreviation. Abbreviation is not suitable. Try to avoid them. Even in title, try to avoid them if you can. You must be accurate and specific, okay? And I advise always to revise the abstract many times. Check the language, check the sequence. For each paragraph should be suitable. And by the way, usually there is limitation for abstract. Some journal, as example, 100 words, except up to 100 words, or 150, or 200, or 300. So you need to follow the instructions. And by the way, you need to keep in mind that the editor, journal editor, the first thing to read is title and abstract. So you need to convince him, you need to market your work. If he find, as example, in the abstract or in the title, some typos or some grammar mistakes, this is directly show that the paper, we don't need to read the paper. He directly say that the language is not good enough. As example, if he find that he couldn't understand what is done in this research, abstract is not clear, he will judge directly that the paper is not clear inside. He don't need to go to read, let me say 15-20 pages to know that it's not let me say a good, well organized or constructed your paper. Directly from the abstract and title he will judge. So make sure that you write the right piece of information in the abstract. Keywords like labels. I mean, researcher, when they want to search for a topic, they write keywords. Okay, as example, photovoltaic. This is a keyword in all papers published who did a study for photovoltaic. So it's label, select them. Some people, they don't select them carefully, and it's misleading, and sometimes they make it general. No, it's preferable to write the correct, and also avoid writing, let me say, abbreviation. In this, it's known as example DNA. It's known, everybody knows what is DNA. Okay. Introduction. Now, after after title, abstract, keywords, we go for introduction. Now, in introduction, you have the chance here to convince the readers about how important is your work, is your paper. You describe the problem, start slowly, but don't expand. Don't make it, I mean, boring by writing much information, even basic information. Okay, but let the reader understand what is this paper about, what is the topic, how important is the topic, what are the driven questions for this paper. Okay, the problem statement. That definitely you need to include also in the introduction the literature survey to show that how people work on this problem, how they solve it, what are their results, their suggestions. It's good if you analyze or criticize their work, so you can link the literature with current contribution of your paper. Okay, link the literature with your paper, your study, current study. Okay. If this link is not there, I mean, people, they understand this is not I mean, interesting. Also, try to, in literature, try to use recent and decent references. Don't go to the past references. I mean, in 2021 now, we go for references published in 1960 or 70. This is not good. There are many new published articles. Go ahead for them. Okay, because this gives bad impression to the editor or reviewers about your work. Pitfalls of the introduction. These are some points you need to avoid, so you don't make it boring. As example, too worldly. I mean, don't use much words and history. Go for history because the reader will lose interest. A mixed bag introduction. Some people, they write in the introduction much discussion and conclusion. It's feel like a bag with many information which is randomly put in there. Has the used car salesman feel of oversell? Excessive use of expressions such as novel. I mean, sometimes the researcher or the author of the paper, he can see that it is novel, it's new, but try not to use this word much. I mean, novel first every time wherever the reader, or let me say the editor or the author reviewer go in the paper. This is the first time we did this work. This is a novel work. You write it once. You don't need to write it every time. Okay. The method section. Okay. Now, methods, or let me say methodology. Okay, which contain the if you have experimental or experimental setup, the location. Okay, is important here. Give details about it. Because what we want is this is to be published for the scientific community. Researcher will come to your paper and try to repeat your work to check the results because they want to apply it in their cases. So if the experimental setup is not clear enough, contain missed details as example, then this is give bad impression for the reviewers or even for the editor. They need to see the experimental setup and the procedure, how you went through this experiment to get your results. Okay, they will criticize you if it is not described very well. Now results. Okay, Now, this is, I'm taking here from my paper published recently in Solar Energy in Elsevier. You can see here the results, okay? By the way, you put sections, you can put subsections, okay? This section provides example numerical estimated thermal behavior in the numerical results section and the real-time experimental measures for the collectors thermal and electrical behavior. And I try to put sections, and the sections I can refer the reader to figures or tables, as you can see here, and these are the figures and these are the tables. So discuss them, not only referring them, but discuss them. Discussion is important. Now, yes, it's important to have introduction with all its parts, okay, as introduction or background, literature and current study, and contains. It's important to have a section for methodology, experimental setup, study location, and so. But results and discussion is your contribution. Give them much attention. I mean, if the results is good, that will give credit to your paper. If some results is missed, the reviewer will give a negative feedback, because they will mention as example, you are looking for just from one side, you didn't cover this or that. This is need to be taken consideration. Also, their discussion is not enough to put figures and tables. You need to discuss them. And I mean, it's not enough today to say as example, the curve between x and y, and you plot the curve. The curve is increased, so the relationship is direct to proportional. This is not enough. Everybody know, okay? But you need to look inside these figures. You can't say a lot, okay? So make your discussion useful by expand it, by look inside. Don't repeat it. I mean, if the same case applied for different, let me say, variable, don't repeat the same discussion here. And compare your results. I always advise to compare results in your published article, in your thesis, because you need to validate it. You need to prove that it is either consistent. By the way, it doesn't matter if there is other researcher looking in different way. Disagree with your results. It's fine. Okay. Sometimes you may find your results is I mean, the case you taken is take you in the wrong direction, and you got results which is not promising. This is also good, because don't expect that any researcher, when they do their research, they have to do improvement. Sometimes they take a method and try to apply it, and they find there is no improvement. This is also scientific achievement, so it's good. Conclusion. Here in conclusion, you tells how your work advances the field from the present state of knowledge. Okay, try to show this. I mean, without clear conclusions. By the way, conclusions contain the main achievements you come up from your results discussion, and also it's preferable to have future, let me say, recommendations or future work. You mentioned something about how I can improve this work. Do you think that while you did this study, you find some points worth to be investigated in the future? This is good, okay? And it should not be, conclusions should not be copy-paste of the abstract. I mean, they should be different. Here you are talking about the main achievements. You highlighted them from your results. And you should mention to the justification for these let me say achievements. Now tenses in journal and thesis. Now here I will pick this paper we published in 2017, photovoltaic thermal PVT system status and future prospects. We published it in Renewable and Sustainable Energy Review in Elsevier, okay? And I try to use it as a case study, as example, to talk about important point, or highlight important point in the abstract, introduction, results, methodology, conclusions, and so on. Okay, and later on I will show you how you submit. I will take this as a case study, the same journal, Renewable and Sustainable Energy, which is almost the journal have the same trend, and how they submit paper, the researchers. Now, here I will talk about tenses. It's good to or worth to use in different sections of the paper. As example, for abstract, you use the present tense. You see here is used for highlighting the gaps in your research area, the aim and objective of the article and applications. Example, you see here at the beginning, this paper aims, you see aims, present tense, to study various aspects of PV system through the blah blah blah. So you use present tense. Also, you use past tense used to highlight the important methodology and expressing the executive summary of your results. Achievements can also be expressed in past perfect tenses. Example, see here, highlighted in the same abstract. Furthermore, comparison between PVT system in terms of performance parameters and efficiency are presented. You see here, past tense, presented. Verb with ed, you see. For introduction, use the present tense. As I mentioned, it's used because for noun, fact, and truth, and usually followed by appropriate research references. As example here, you see, while energy demand is growing, verb with ing, you see, present tense. Also, past tense used to describe work or experiments that have been conducted and the results of this work. It's like telling the literature survey. As example, reference 29. This is reference published in literature, indicated, or you can say investigated, proposed, conducted, and so on. So these are past tense, okay, because you want to say about something already published, get published. Also in the introduction, the active voice, useful when you describe previous research and then introduce your own, okay, and interact. Okay, like example, this paper is the subject, aims to review, you see here, review is the verb, the most significant development, you see here, this is the object. Also, passive voice is not preferable for introduction, but some sentence passive voice can be perfectly acceptable. As example, here, passive voice, MATLAB software was used. You see here, MATLAB is the object, was used. Here we talk about the passive voice in the simulation and analysis. For methodology, use the present passive to describe what is normally done or to describe a standard procedure. Example, 3 systems, this is the object, okay, are used, this is the verb in this study. You see here? Also, passive, past passive, as example, it's used to describe what you did yourself. Example, an experimental rig, this is the object, is located in Surrey in UKM campus, was used, you see here, to evaluate blah blah blah. So this is passive voice. For result and discussion, mainly you use present tense to present the diagram, figures, table, images, also used to explain the scientific or the significance, of the results. Example, see here from the same paper, figure 4 shows, you see here, shows, and I start talking about it. Also, past tense used to detail the results obtained. Example, the SIC, okay, nanofluid viscosity followed, you see here, followed the same trend, and then I start talking about it. Okay. In conclusion, you can use past tense to summarize the main finding, major contribution, and limitation of your work, while future tense to suggest future, let me say, direction for the other researchers. For past tense, you see here, the high thermal conductivity enhanced, you see here, enhanced the heat transfer for PVT nanofluid cooled system. While for future tense, I've been talking about the results in the future for any time, which will help to expect, you see here, will help the future and manage the power production. Now, next is how we submit our paper. After we design, or after we decided that we are going to submit our paper to this journal, which is Renewable and Sustainable Energy Review, as example. It could be any journal. You go to the website and you can see here some links. Okay, you can click on them. This menu, submit your paper. If you go for this, then you start submission. Also, you need to, I advise to go to the guide for authors, because the journal there put their restrictions, their guidelines for the author to construct his paper, to prepare his paper. There are many information important to be considered. If you miss them or fail to address them, then directly the editor will reject your paper for something missed in your. Always look to the abstracting and indexing, because it gives you indication about the quality of the journal you are going to submit your paper for. By the way, this is one of the top journals in the field of energy. It's Q1 ISI index journal, impact factor between 11 to 12 as far as I know. Okay. Now, then you either sign in or log in. If you register, if you didn't submit before in this journal, you register. Or if you already registered, then you can log in using your information. And then you go for the main co-author submission. Here you can see here a new submission, revisions completed. A new submission at the beginning when you submit your paper. A revision when it's passed the first revision round, second, and so on. And completed when it's get either accepted or rejected. And you start going through the steps. The journal will give you, every time you finish step, it give you another. As example, select article type. We mentioned, you remember, it's review. It could be a review, it could be original research, it could be short letter, and so it could be part of, we want to publish it in a special issue offered by the journal, and so on. You need to check this. You see here, original research article, review article, and so on. These are special issue. You select which type, and then the next step, maybe he will ask about the title. You put the title, copy paste. By the way, your paper is ready. You just need to copy paste in each part. Enter your author, the author information. Your information is there. Add the other authors. You can see here, fill the information and add and so on. Then you go for select sections and category. The journal offer here, the section and category could cover different topics or parts of the journal. Okay, and then submit article, abstract copy paste it sometime, keyword, sorry, submit abstract, and then keyword. Abstract, you see here, limit 300 words, some of them 150, 200. You need to keep working within the limit, because it will, the system will not accept to go for the next step if you over the required limitation or number. Now, keywords, as I mentioned, use keywords, semicolon between them, and be precise in using the keyword, right keywords. And then select classification. The journal put the classifications, and they put limits, sometimes 3 or 4 up to 3 or 4 or 10. As example here in this journal, 10. And it will open in the other menu, and you select a category, a classification from there. But this is useful, by the way, for the editor to because he will know to which reviewer he will send the paper. Then additional information. Some journals ask for additional information. As example, the number of figures in your paper, the number of tables, the number of words. What is the novelty of your work? Is there any funded body granted this work, and so on. Then next will be the suggested reviewer. A journal asks for suggested reviewer. Doesn't mean that they will select from these reviewer. They may and they may not, but this is part of the, and to be added in their databases. If there is opposite reviewer, also you can mention for them. Then you go for the uploading your files. Your files, you can see here, cover letter, manuscript, figure, table, blah, 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 highlights. I mean, any title with the star, upper star, it means this is compulsory. It should be. but others without star, it means it is not compulsory. Okay, optional. You start uploading one by one. Okay, and after that you build your PDF file. After you finish the uploading the files, you go for the next step to build PDF file. Check carefully your PDF file. If something wrong or part corrupted or figures not clear, you come back, step back, and try to make sure that you upload it again in a way to make sure the final PDF is clear. Now, after that, you submit and it will appear here. And after you check the PDF file, you go for approval for your submission. And now it is with the editorial board. Revision, when it gets finished, the revision by the reviewer and they have feedback, and you can receive it here. Okay. And final is to either accept or reject. This is when it's completed and published and they put it in the final form. Okay. Now, acknowledgement, really interesting to recognize those who help you on your research. If it is, let me say, advisors, supervisor, your colleagues, your family, proofreaders, typists, grants you received from bodies, international or national. And just to make it as a map here or flowchart, how your paper get published until the final accepted of the paper. You see here, this is the author, editor, reviewer. Author here starts submitting the paper. Then if it is past the basic requirement, meet the basic requirement for the journal, then the editor will assign reviewer. Otherwise, no, reject directly. If it is yes, and then he assigned the reviewer will do their work and give recommendation, the editor will collect their information, maybe 2, 3, 4 reviewers more. Then either he rejects or make a decision. Reject, that's it, done. Or make a decision either to accept in the present way or to send the revised let me say suggestions or feedback from reviewers to the author. The author will revise his paper and submit again, and we return again until it gets accepted or rejected. Okay. Now at the end here, I would like to thank you for attending this presentation. I hope that it will be useful for the researchers. I know that many researchers have many experience in different way, which may be more better than this, but at least this will be useful, especially for the new researcher in different specialty. Thank you very much.